and the author is Pearl S. Buck. Here we'll come to know what humanism is. The protagonist of this lesson tells us that humanism is above anything. If it is to save an enemy's life, a doctor must be responsible towards his duty to save the patient's life, whosoever it is. So, before you read, it is the time of the World War. An American prisoner of war is washed ashore in a dying state and is found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. Should he save him as a doctor or hand him over to the army as a patriot? So here is a question that the the lesson puts forward to the readers. So Dr. Sadao Hoki's house was built on a spot of the Japanese coast where, as a little boy, he had often played. The low square stone house was set upon rocks well above a narrow beach that was outlined with bent pines. As a boy, Sadao had climbed the pines, supporting himself on his bare feet, as he had seen men do in the South Seas when they climbed for coconuts. His father had taken him often to the islands of those seas, and never had he failed to say to the little brave boy at his side, "Those islands yonder, they are the stepping stones to the future for Japan. Where shall we step from then?" Sadao had asked seriously. "Who knows?" his father had answered. "Who can limit our future? It depends on what we make it." So, it is clearly understandable that Dr. Sadao's father was a fully patriotic person. He can see the bright future of his nation, Japan. And he is very much particular that one day Japan is going to be a very much successful country. Next page. Sadao had taken into his hand as he did everything his father said, his father who never joked or played with him, but who spent infinite pains upon him who was his only son. Sadao knew that his education was his father's chief concern. For this reason, he had been sent at 22 to America to learn all that could be learned of surgery and medicine. He had come back at 30, and before his father died, he had seen Sadao become famous not only as a surgeon but as a scientist. So Sadao's father was happy enough before he died, he could see his son becoming very much successful doctor, famous as a surgeon, but as a scientist too. So, because he was perfecting a discovery which would render wounds entirely clean, he had not been sent abroad with the troops, as he knew there was some slight danger that the old general might need an operation for a condition for which he was now being treated medically. And for this possibility, Sadao was being kept in Japan. So, during the war, Dr. Sadao was not sent with the troops to heal them. Rather, he was kept in the country so that he may be called in emergency for the old general. As the old general was ill, so he may need the help of Dr. Sadao. Clouds were rising from the ocean now. The unexpected warmth of the past few days had at night drawn heavy fog from the cold waves. Sadao watched mist hide outlines of a little island near the shore and then come creeping up the beach below the house, wreathing around the pines In a few minutes, fog would be wrapped about the house too. Then he would go into the room where Hannah, his wife, would be waiting for him with the two children. But at this moment, the door opened and she looked out a dark blue woolen houri over her kimono. She came to him affectionately and put her arm through his as he stood, smiled and said nothing. He had met Hannah in America, but he had waited to fall in love with her until he was sure she was Japanese. His father would never have received her unless she had been pure in her race. He wondered often whom he would have married if he had not met Hannah, and by what luck he had found her in the most casual way by chance, literally at an American professor's house. The professor and his wife had been kind people anxious to do something for their few foreign students, and the students, though bored, had accepted this kindness. Sadao had often told Hannah how nearly he had not gone to Professor Harley's house that night. So here we are understanding the general the casual life that Dr. Sadao he is spending with his happy family. He is a very happy man now. He is very famous. He has his wife, he has his two children, and also he's remembering how he met his wife, and he's really pleased, and he is very much blessed. He thinks he is a blessed man to have such a wife whom he had met in America when he was learning, when he was getting his degree from America. So he met Hannah there at some professor's house, and after knowing about her pure race only, they got married, because we know already, we have learned from the very first chapter that Dr. Sadao's father was very much patriotic, and he loved everything about his country only and nothing else other than his country. Okay, the next page. The rooms were so small, the food so bad, the professor's wife so vulnerable, but he had gone, and there he had found Hannah, a new student, and had felt he would love her if it were at all possible. Now he felt her hand on his arm and was aware of the pleasure it gave him, even though they had been married years enough to have the two children, for they had not married heedlessly in America. They had finished their work at school and had come home to Japan, and when his father had seen her, the marriage had been arranged in the old Japanese way, although Sadao and Hannah had talked everything over beforehand. They were perfectly happy. She laid her cheek against his arm. So they are spending a very much lovable time in their veranda, and Dr. Sadao, he is remembering everything, whatever that is that is a flashback. We can understand the past of Dr. Sadao and his father too by this.